You can always count on Bud Light, just like you can always count on Always Game Gary. No bar is too far. No wing sauce is too hot. Not for Gary. Always Game Gary is famous among friends. He deserves a Bud Light. Enjoy responsibly. Bud Light Beer, AB St. Louis, Missouri.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz podcast.
Over the evolution of this show, I have learned and failed on many instances to control my tone when talking about certain subjects, and it makes me a little more strident and obnoxious than I would like to be. And so I'm going to see if I can discuss this in a way that does not put you off today, and I will probably fail because what is happening now is pretty interesting as I see the amount of pressure coming in to continue discussing the Michael Bennett story. That it's not that you don't want me talking about this stuff or us talking about this stuff, and it's not that you want sports to be a safe haven or an escape where you don't have to deal with real-world darkness. It's that you don't like how I talk about this stuff, both in my opinions and the way that I deliver them. And so now you want me to talk about Michael Bennett. Now you want this conversation. Many of you are writing in, telling me that I should apologize, that I got everything wrong. So let's backtrack for just a second. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, just to give the information the way that it has come out. Michael Bennett and the Seattle Seahawks have been a team that is proudly and defiantly cause-driven. And it is a team that is outspoken and has opinions and is very strong. And I don't know who the defensive coordinator is of that team, but that must be an interesting job that that guy has, trying to, harness the dark energies of dark, I mean, in terms of defense, not skin color, the dark energies that those guys, those personalities bring on Sundays with menace and every day to the facility when they're just a little bit off, because that is a rabid group of defensive players.
It's a gentleman called Chris Richard. Chris Richard.
I've been told he's very tough. No, yeah. I've been told he's very tough. He's very strong, and it's hard to get the respect of that room, and he has it. Like, that's a very difficult room. The defensive coordinator room is very difficult in Seattle.
You also have Michael Barrow as the linebacker coach. He used to play for the Canes, and so he's a guy who I think commands a lot of respect.
Yeah, another very strong personality. But Michael Bennett is one of the strongest personalities in that locker room. He's a defensive tackle. He and his brother are as outspoken as any people you will find anywhere in sports. I mean, hell, his brother is doing good political cartoons. Like, he's really good at it. Martellus is really good at creativity. But Michael Bennett in Las Vegas, there was an incident in which it sounded to him like guns were fired, but evidently like a statue or something fell over. Everybody scattered, and the police started arresting people or roughing people up or just trying to control the situation. A panic situation, a difficult situation, a damn near impossible situation, and Michael Bennett ends up in handcuffs, and now we have different stories. And what I wanted to get into is world viewpoints and how we arrive at them, because the latest thing on this Michael Bennett story is he told one version of the story, and it became about just, this happened to me because I was black. Mm-hmm. And now the police video has come out. It is edited. There's some stuff missing. The police department is incentivized, as it always is, to not admit wrongdoing, to protect its own in a way that is understandable, even if it feels a little immoral. It's deeply human. So the place that we arrive today is that people want to call Michael Bennett a liar. They want to call him fraud, counterfeit, as if his entire story is untrue, even though some of the videos suggest that pieces of his story might not have been true. But what I want to talk to you about today is how we arrive at our world views, because I can totally see how Michael Bennett might feel that situation was more threatening than it actually was based on his life experience. And I can also see why people who have never had any life experience like that would look at that video and say, you liar. They would have treated anybody that way. It's a dangerous situation, and that's how police deal with those situations. But what I wanted to talk to you about is the idea.
Some people watched that video, and they actually saw other people in that casino around Michael Bennett being treated the same way.
Mm-hmm. And look, these are difficult jobs and difficult truths and difficult times. So some of this stuff is complicated. But this is what I would say to you. As the son of exiles who only grew up in America, there are times my parents will be watching television or consuming media coverage, and something that I think is an obvious truth, they think is propaganda. They think is video has been altered. They have a different perspective because they come from communism. So they have experiences that I've never had with freedom. And so something that's on the television that I think is an obvious truth, they see it and look at it and are like, no, that was distorted for consumption the same way that they used to do it on the island. That's not true what I'm watching there. So anyways, if documentarians can control the truth, right? Documentarians make films and they're supposed to be based on facts, but it's not just the truth that they're delivering. It's their truth that they're delivering, right? Mm-hmm. A documentarian. Can't you see how we would arrive in this place where Michael Bennett, and I don't know what happened there. I have to tell you a million times over, we can't know, and I'm willing to wait until all of the facts come out on this. If this does indeed go to civil trial, and if Michael Bennett was indeed lying or distorting, he does real damage with that and ought to be called out on it. If we can prove without any dispute that this is something that he exaggerated for personal gain or because he has his own biases. I'm just talking to you about the idea of, do you understand how he would arrive at those biases? Because the entire situation that we have with the police right now is that when it comes to the police force tends to be more threatened by black people, and black people therefore tend to be more threatened by the police. Like that's how my experience, Stugotz, I'm telling you, my life experience with police officers, I have felt very comfortable talking back to police officers my entire life. And anytime that I feel like someone's being forceful with me in a way that is too aggressive, I will say something back. And when I am with my black friends, none of whom are criminals, not a one of whom is a criminal. Right. Every one of them is like, what is the matter with you? Why would you ever do that? I'm not talking about upon seeing it. I'm talking about me retelling a story. This police officer did this to me, and this is what I said back. And they're like, no, it's always sir. In the middle of whatever that situation was, all Michael Bennett was doing was sir. Like, he wasn't. There was no video proof that in any way that man was aggressive. Was there? Did you see any video proof that showed you that Michael Bennett was anything other than scared and respectful?
No, he looked scared and he was respectful. And the one thing you talked about things you can dispute. The one thing you can't dispute is how Michael Bennett, his feelings while that was going on. You can't dispute that.
But see, it's being disputed.
They're his feelings.
I know, but Stugotz, but that's at the core of everything we're talking about here. Your feelings don't matter, Michael Bennett. Your feelings don't matter. Like, it's at the core of everything we're talking about.
But people want to so Michael Bennett comes out and says, I felt a certain way while this was going on, and people want to say, call him a liar and say,
fraud, liar.
You're making it up.
I don't want to hear about your feelings. But I just understand how we both arrive. Man, come on. O.J. Simpson showed us that. How we all arrive at the same crime scene and view it differently.
Right.
Based on what life experiences we brought to that crime scene.
But Dan, there's going to be a lot of white people who come out and say they've had bad interactions with cops, that they have felt threatened by cops. And I would say this: maybe I've had 100 interactions over the course of my lifetime with cops. There's only one time that I felt threatened. I'm guessing if you ask a black person that same question, 100 interactions, how many times have you felt threatened? It's more than one.
Let me be clear about something here, okay? I respect police officers. I do not consistently talk back disrespectfully to police officers. It's not something that I do all the time. I've done it in my life 3 or 4 times very comfortably because I feel like police that the police officer is using his power gratuitously on me just because he can in a way, or she can in a way that's emasculating for no good reason. And in those instances, each of those instances, I felt comfortable talking back to the police officer. I don't have a black friend who can say the same thing. Not a one. And just sometimes we arrive at all of these things with different life experiences. And when we do arrive at all of these things with different life experiences, very often we arrive at different truths. Like, we feel like it's the truth, but it's not the truth. Michael Bennett deserves any wrath you've got for him if this is proven to be untrue. But what I saw does not prove that to me. What I saw was it fell in line with what it is Michael Bennett was feeling in those moments as he was panicked, scared, and helpless and saying, sir, to the police officer. But I also understand how it is that an entitled athlete might run into a situation and feel like he deserves better treatment than all the other people who are running out of those same gunshots, because his life experience has also been very catered to. So it's not just the life experiences where he's been a victim. It's been the life experiences where he's been spoiled.
Dan Le Batard.
Today during the break, you would have marveled at all of the people, male and female, that he said aren't going to age well.
Keep those names to ourselves, Dad.
Otherwise attractive people that Stugotz was just totally comfortable saying, she's not going to age well, he's not going to age well.
Stugotz.
And I'm staring at him, and he's unshaven, and he's wearing flip-flops, and he's wearing a 12-year-old T-shirt. And Stugotz, like, he can feel my judgment. And you know what he says to me? I still got it.
I do. I feel like if I were out on the open market, I would be having a field day.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
You guys are usually very upset by broadcasters. Joe Buck, I think, is fairly benign. For some reason, he is polarizing. If I ask the audience, make up the list of the people in sports you hate the most, broadcasters are going to be on it. And I want to have a broadcasting conversation with you. How do you feel about John Gruden calling the game of Jay Gruden? Or something else that happened this weekend, Kirk Herbstreit would not give a prediction on the Game Day show about a game that he was calling later that day because he didn't want to appear biased during the broadcast. But I kind of wanted Kirk Herbstreit's information. Like, I wanted to hear what he thought about who was going to win that game, but he would not do that because he's recusing himself so that he doesn't have a bias, or it doesn't appear he has a bias when he gets into the booth.
But you really wanted Kirk's prediction? Because I heard him on Mike and Mike saying, like, he had a hard time making any sort of predictions on that show just because he said, we don't really know what we're talking about. Like, I'm guessing if I make predictions.
Oh, but he's really good at it, though.
Very good.
Yeah, we're all guessing when we make predictions.
Right.
Of course. Like, it's one of the stupidest things in sports entertainment, the fact that we still do these pregame shows and you care, what Terry Bradshaw's prediction is when Rob Riggle is beating him as the comedian. Like, it's the whole reason we do that cruddy celebrity segment, because nobody knows anything with predictions.
I mean, Dan, honestly, I don't care really about either, but I find, for me, just me, I don't care if Kirk Herbstreit makes a pick. I don't think it's going to, it's just a prediction. I don't think it's going to affect how he calls the game. I understand he's talking about the backlash he'll get because it will appear that he's biased one way or the other. I don't know how, if you're John Gruden calling Jay Gruden's game, I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you do it, and you balance it and do it in a way where it doesn't come off as biased towards Jay.
I tell you what, he pulled it off, because I didn't hear a whole lot of people complaining, did you, that John Gruden was favoring his brother. In fact, in that game, I felt like he was almost praising Andy Reid more than he was his own brother. From what I heard, I wasn't totally engaged in the broadcast.
So he goes the other way?
Well, but
he heaps the praise on the other coach?
No, but Andy Reid was also doing more interesting things in that game.
Right.
With his offense.
I'm applying my own, sensibilities here. If I were calling a game, if I was calling a game and my relative, my brother, my dad, anyone was coaching that game, I would have a hard time ripping my brother.
Well, but I guess what I'm asking you guys, Mike, was this any sort of controversy? Did you guys hear it anywhere in the broadcast? Did you notice? It would be a testament to the Grudens if you didn't. It would be a testament if you didn't even notice that John Gruden was calling the game of his brother. But what I was asking you guys is, do you want that? Do you want Bob Greasy calling the game of Brian Greasy as a one-time thing?
Well, I enjoyed John Gruden calling Jay Gruden's game. It was an experience that I was looking forward to the first time that it happened. I think John treats it as fairly as possible. Remember, John Gruden's son is also on the staff. There is he's often put in the situation, like he was on Monday, where he has relationships with both sidelines. Remember, he was on the staff of Andy Reid. I think he handles that whole situation as well as you possibly could.
Does anyone really care is what I'm asking
I don't think people care. I don't think people care, and you can't really discern any bias because John Gruden, he's a football guy. He loves all football. Yeah. He doesn't really say anything bad about anybody.
anyone who's near a football.
I love this guy, man. Yeah. You never hear him say, I hate this, man. I love this, man.
I know.
But will he say, hey, that was a bad play call? Will he do some of that stuff?
I don't see him often do that. I see him break down what happens in a game.
He doesn't do a lot of harsh criticism. It's one of my great frustrations with all these coaches who feed from the broadcasters, turn broadcasters, feeding from the media teat. All of these guys, they get on the air and it's just protect each other. Like, when do you ever hear? You realize what a viral splash it would be if one broadcaster, someone who was a coach who turned broadcaster, really scorched another coach for the stupidity of a game plan? Do you realize how shocking that would be to all of us if it were to actually happen? If the same way that you were to talk about your offensive coordinator in your living room or your sports radio station, if a coach of name, they protect each other more than the police, man. Seriously. Those coaches protect each other. Like, you will never hear one coach say, how is that possible? How is it possible that Josh Norman is steaming after a game, rips Amari Cooper and Michael Crabtree, and in all the history of coaches as broadcasters, you never have one incident that you can remember of a coach broadcaster ripping the game plan of another? How is that even possible?
I don't know, but I want it desperately. I want it to happen. I want, like John Gruden, to either rip a coach or say, man, if I had Aaron Rodgers the last 10 years, do you know what I'd do with him? I want that.
It is baffling. It is, and we keep hiring them for their insight. Seriously. We love hiring them. I'm not talking about just ESPN. I'm talking about everybody in sports. Yeah. We love hiring them. Hey, coach. I mean, look at Wannstedt. Wannstedt's a TV star now, man. If you'd given me 1,000 guesses, do you know how long I spent a decade making fun of that man's mustache? Wannstedt. You know how funny it is for me to see him on top? Like, there is a 0% chance that Dave Wannstedt will ever say anything publicly bad about a coach.
There's no shots?
No, I mean, never.
Jimmy Johnson never do it?
It'll never happen.
Now that I'm thinking about it, there's not a single coach.
Jimmy's the most likely to do it, right? But Jimmy's gotten too spiritual in his old age. He's like enjoying life too much. He's like kumbaya. He doesn't want to fight with anybody. What happened to you, Jimmy? He used to be so edgy. Now he's spiritual and feel good and sunshine.
I'm telling you, I hope we arrive at a place. I've been saying this for years. I want to get there. I want to see a broadcast team who is thinking and speaking the way me and my friends are at home about the game. I want that desperately. I think it'd be great, and I think fans want that, and I think fans would love it. Preferably me.
Hold that thought.
Yeah,
let's sell some ads.
I was about to make that joke. It wasn't too obvious there that you were auditioning for, hey, put me on a broadcast.
Just say it.
Never too far from a Stugotz scam or agenda. Never.
Oh, you can do it with me.
Can I? Thank you, Stugotz.
You're welcome.
Don Le Batard.
Did you love The Joker's Wild? 61% of the audience said no.
Oh, you damn young people soaring with so much ignorance.
Stugotz.
You don't even know what we're talking about. The Joker's Wild is the truth, man. Stay woke.
This is the Don Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
Stan Van Gundy going to join us later in the show. He's always got opinions. We love talking to him. That's noon Eastern. Mark Richt, the University of Miami football coach, going to join us at 12:30 Eastern. Cian Fahey going to talk football with us at 11:30 Eastern. Did we get to the bottom of whether Ryan Clark was indeed on Monday Night Football's pregame show, even though he doesn't speak Spanish, on the Spanish broadcast? Can you guys tell me, was it good? I haven't heard any of this sound. We were talking about this yesterday, and we were talking about the idea of Ryan Clark sort of stumbling onto a Spanish language set and me watching it and being like, oh, I didn't know Ryan Clark spoke Spanish. And then, you stop for a second and you're like, oh, wait a minute. Ryan Clark doesn't speak Spanish. This is becoming increasingly obvious as we're watching this.
It was a bit awkward. So the question was asked in Spanish. He'd answer the question in English. Then there'd kind of be like a reaction to his answer in Spanish. Then the next question in Spanish, his response in English, reaction again. Then they made picks, and then they made a bet for some reason.
Well, how much was Ryan Clark contributing to all of this? What was he saying? Just a couple of English words? Was he participating vigorously in this?
Oh, so the question was about 10 seconds or so in Spanish. He was breaking down Josh Norman's game. He gave like a minute and a half in English. Then there was like another 10-second response in Spanish, and then he did the same for another player. And then they made picks and a bet. It's very weird. The whole thing was like 4.5 minutes
Okay,
long.
Is it funny or is it not funny? Is it worth playing or is it just awkward? I saw a movie the other day. Have you guys, what was the name of this movie? Donald Cried? Donald Cried. It was a movie. It made me laugh because the one of the main characters in it was so awkward and creepy. It was high school friends reuniting, and one of them had evolved into an adult, and the hometown high school friend was still in the same place. And so it was funny to me because it was awkward. Is this going to be funny what we play here, or is it not going to be funny? What's your level of confidence in this?
We could play one of the shorter clips because the questions are like 2 minutes long.
Okay, yeah, that's Spanish people. Is there anyone dressed as a bumblebee on the set? Is there a woman wearing too little clothes? I know that this is Sábado Gigante, but it's also Spanish language television. I loved one time, I talked to Pat Riley one time, philosopher, poet. I'm like, this was 10 years ago. What do you like watching on television? He's like, Spanish television. Like, you don't speak Spanish. I know. He's like, but it's funny. Like, everybody's running around there. There's an oracle.
Everyone's so happy.
Yes, nobody's wearing any clothes. What are the rules on Spanish television? The guy's on a horse shirtless.
It appears there are no rules.
Yeah, I mean, so, and then here comes Ryan Clark. Whose idea was this? Can we talk to Ryan Clark about the execution of this and how awkwardly he felt standing in the middle of it?
Now it's time for the picks. ¿Con quién estás? Yo sé.
Carlos knows Washington. Yeah!
Él jugó con el equipo de Washington, también estuvo con el equipo de Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Ustedes dos contra los otros dos. Tacos de por medio, tacos.
You like tacos?
Tacos? Let's do it.
Okay,
We're going to bet.
That's the bet.
That's the bet.
Esa es la apuesta.
Stake on it.
Perfecto.
Yes, sir.
Dale.
Okay.
Why?
I don't know. I mean,
but why?
I don't know. I'd like to know.
I heard the whole thing and I still don't know why it happened.
Okay. Somebody had an idea. Let's throw a football player in there. Poor Ryan Clark. Ryan Clark is very good.
Yep.
When speaking his language and being asked questions in his language. I want to... Kaepernick's done, right? It's over.
Yes.
It appears so.
Yeah. Brandon Whedon is being considered by the Titans. It's over.
But the good news is they don't have to change their offense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when you saw some of the names being thrown around on who the Titans were considering, I thought that the place that this would end, and the only place it would end, is if a team that thought it had a chance, that had a legitimate chance, was going to bring him in, like Derek Carr or here, to save a situation for a month. You don't want that. You don't want everything he brings in your locker room if it's for a backup, but if you're desperate enough to save your season in Oakland or Tennessee,
right,
that's the place where you would do it. But when the Titans are looking at Whedon, Matt Barkley, Matt McCloyne, and TJ Yates, when they're like, it's over. It feels like this is done.
Do they know how long Mariota's out for? Because I feel like with Derek Carr, it's 2 to 6 weeks. The Raiders should be the spot where Colin Kaepernick goes, but it is 2 to 6 weeks.
Right, and Mariota's backup there is Matt Castle. Matt Castle, the expectation would be Matt Castle as a starter, and they're kicking the tires on Whedon to back up Castle.
No, Dan. We're first off, I think Mike and I are agreeing with you. It's the same thing in Oakland, though. They have E.J. Manuel, who has started games for Buffalo, and he's the backup,
it's over,
and they don't know how long.
It's over, so we can.
Well, I don't know if Derek Carr was out for the season. I'm not certain it would be any different. Maybe they would go to Colin Kaepernick.
Okay, well, regardless, I thought that if this last domino was going to tumble, that it would look like the Oakland situation or the Tennessee situation. They're moving on, so we could feel with a good amount of conviction that Colin Kaepernick is not in the league for reasons that are not football reasons, and I think that this conversation now has to shift because it seems fairly obvious that it has nothing to do with football anymore. And if you don't think that's obvious, you're really either being ignorant or blind. So if that's obvious, we can simply say that what is happening here is the NFL has decided you will not do anything like that in the workplace. And now you have a different conversation, right? Because a lot of people agree with that. A lot of people agree with the idea that you are not to do that in your workplace. Anything like that brings attention to you.
Naturally, a lot of people agree with
it,
yes. But a lot of people disagree with it as well.
We also heard he wasn't going to be kneeling anymore.
Right. Mm-hmm. And he wants to play. I mean, he does want to play.
It's all very difficult because he's only said so much publicly. I think the truth might lie in this whole Baltimore situation.
But what I'm saying is not might lie anymore. Does it not? Can we not just say flatly, everyone in consensus nodding yes because of the information available and TJ Yates and Matt McCloin and what's happened in Oakland and what's happened in Tennessee? Can we not just say flatly, as a matter of fact, Colin Kaepernick knelt, and that is the reason that he is unemployed. There aren't grades or shades or degrees to that.
Oh, we could say that flatly.
Without that happening, he wouldn't find himself here. I think we can say flatly it's not for football reasons right now.
Correct.
I admit that it's a little difficult to decipher what exactly is going on here. If it's more the Baltimore situation where his girlfriend had a post, and that's what teams are afraid of.
But I don't think the details matter anymore. We can't make excuses on every situation for every single situation. Why there are reasons that he's not hired.
He's not playing right now because of one reason. I mean, as far as I'm concerned.
To me,
but I'm not ready to flatly say he's never going to play in the league again.
Okay. You don't have to flatly say it, but when you flatly say it, is it going to be too late for anyone to care? Like when you're flatly willing to say it because it was going to be the preseason, it was going to be injuries, let's see how this shakes out. Like when, maybe next year, like we're going to keep kicking this can down the road, right?
Well, I want, like if Russell Wilson, if he goes down and he's out for the season, I would like to think the Seahawks would at least consider signing Colin Kaepernick.
Okay, that's.
But it has to be a quarterback, Dan, where it's got to be a team that has a chance with a quarterback who goes out for the season.
Mm-hmm.
He's clearly in this position because of the knee. He's out of football, and it's not because of a football reason. Is he still out of the league because of the knee? A knee that he said he wouldn't be bending down on for the anthem anymore? Or is there something else going on like there was in Baltimore potentially where his girlfriend made a post?
Nothing in life is free. Time for some ads.
Yeah, but you guys understand how all of this gets muddled? If you allow me the first part of it, which is he's out of the league because of that one thing,
correct,
then it stops being, you would see how some people would look at that. He's out of the league because he was fighting for black people. And now what you have on the other side is football telling you flatly, with precedent, they're telling you flatly, you will not bring social activism into this workplace or it will cost you employment in this league. You understand why it is that those look like two different things to both sides?
Of course, yes. But I wonder if that's the same for every player in the league.
Is it because he was a pioneer? Because other players are kneeling. Other players are raising fists.
He is a pioneer, and he is he's going to end up being a martyr, too. And, martyrs in real time aren't celebrated. You need time to see martyrs celebrated.
Dan Le Batard.
People have told me before, when I was younger, that I looked like George Clooney. I'm serious. When I was younger.
Stugotz.
You have a booger in your right nostril.
So does Clooney.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
Allison, would you be kind enough to see if you can get us George Foreman here in the next couple of segments, just real quick, to ask him about why he wants to fight Steven Seagal? And Guillermo, put this on the poll. Would you watch George Foreman? What is he now, 65?
Yep.
65-year-old grandfather of 400 Georges.
He's 68, excuse me.
68 years old. Would you want to watch George Foreman? He has challenged Steven Seagal. Steven Seagal could use any fighting style of his choice against George Foreman. George Foreman trying to recreate this Mayweather McGregor Magic in the senior division
with old people. Yeah,
but why is George Foreman, preacher man George Foreman, lovable grill salesman George Foreman, why is he calling out the dangerous and creepy Steven Seagal? Steven Seagal's life seems crazy. I would love to talk to Steven Seagal. I want you guys to do internet searches on Steven Seagal and some of the crazy things that have happened in his life, because he seems like a real loon.
Foreman said it was important that he clarified it would be strictly hand-to-hand, no weapons.
No weapons. Okay, good. An important clarification. Steve Seagal looks a little like me now.
George Foreman will join us tomorrow to discuss these things.
Okay.
Wow.
All right. Thank you, Allison, for getting right on that. It was quick, but I'd like to talk to him about it now. Just
well, he can't.
Do you want to watch that? Because I don't think. Why would you want to watch that?
Oh, I'd be all over that. I mean, just the novelty of it. Just Seagal versus George Foreman at 68 years of age.
I think it would immediately
I'd pay
make
top dollar for it.
You can't have it now.
Okay, thank you, Allison. All right. I want him right now. I want my George Foreman right now. Are you sure that I can't have him next segment? It's just a little drive-by. Come by next segment and talk to me about why are you well, why can someone else answer my question? Why does he want to fight Steven Seagal?
He said call me tomorrow. I'll give you a lot of good stuff.
Okay.
You want me to call him back and get more?
No.
It's so annoying. Show.
I mean, why are you lashing out at me? What did I do? Just ask you to do your job quickly. It's impressive that you got him right on the phone immediately.
It's really your co-host that I'm mad at right now.
What are you mad at him about?
I mean, the Russell Brand thing is causing me some angst because I think that he went on MIA because of Stugotz's very, abrupt
suicide question?
Yes, it was.
That was a bad one.
You are so not gentle, man.
No, I wasn't.
But you really think that's it? Russell Brand is mad at us? You think so?
I think it's just an awkward.
I mean, it was such a heavy-handed question. Guy gives you a little vulnerability. Stugatz can't be trusted to be gentle around those things.
Awfully convenient to use me as an excuse, Allison. Do your job.
I mean, it's a fact, Stugotz. I mean, I would be happy to. You get Russell Brand. You know what? What is there a reason that you haven't killed yourself lately? What happened with that moment? Why didn't it work? Were you not good at it? I mean, seriously.
I've gotten bigger guests than Russell Brand.
Really?
What is happening
I don't know.
Hi, everyone. Stugotz here. Support for the Dan Le Batard Show podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, and your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. With Rocket Mortgage, you can apply simply and understand fully so you can mortgage confidently. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Stugotz, STUGOTZ, equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
Okay, keep your eyes closed.
Okay.
I want to show you my first ever painting.
All right.
Okay. Open your eyes.
Oh, that's a lot of colors and shapes.
So be honest. What do you think?
Well, I like how if you switch to Geico, you could save hundreds of dollars on car insurance.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Here, why don't I hold your paintbrush while you call them?
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
You can always count on Bud Light, just like you can always count on Always Game Gary. No bar is too far. No wing sauce is too hot. Not for Gary. Always Game Gary is famous among friends. He deserves a Bud Light. Enjoy responsibly. Bud Light Beer, AB St. Louis, Missouri.
Dan Le Batard.
America is addicted to its technology, and it's really unhealthy.
I keep having this discussion with my wife because she is on that phone nonstop. And what I have asked for our family to do moving forward is let's figure out a time where all of us put our phones away and none of us use them till the next morning.
Stugotz.
Yeah, but nobody wants to be with you.
That just dawned on me. Thanks, Dan.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
Stan Van Gundy going to join us in an hour. Mark Richt in an hour and a half. Cian Fahey going to talk some football with us here in a half hour. I want to get to this Antonio Brown, Ben Roethlisberger story because Ben Roethlisberger was not shy about what he said on the radio about Antonio Brown and that behavior not being okay. They have an interesting relationship with a good amount of tension in it. Antonio Brown has told us the stories. You have that sound, Mike? You have the sound of Antonio Brown telling us the stories. You have the sound of Roethlisberger being critical of Antonio Brown. Okay, so Antonio Brown has told us the stories of he and Ben. We'll get into it. They have fights like married couples sometimes have fights. They love each other, but they will go time without talking. Sometimes it's a normal part of their relationship that Antonio Brown will have to apologize for something or Ben Roethlisberger won't talk to him for, 10 days because he's mad about something.
Right. Not really that surprising to me, at least. Maybe surprising to some football fans, but I could see a scenario where that kind of stuff happens and happens pretty frequently.
But there aren't a lot of marriages quite like that one, right? Like, how often have you seen that kind of tension between a duo that you know to be good? Like, when do you ever see that? It's not
McNabb and T.O.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Kobe and Shaq.
But wait a minute. Hold on a second. Hold on. McNabb and T.O., it ruined their relationship.
Correct.
They weren't a good marriage. They were a productive marriage, but they were not a good marriage.
Correct. And it started off very well, as I recall.
And Kobe and Shaq, that stuff didn't happen at the end. I'm talking about when you're in the middle of the success. Ben Roethlisberger has helped make Antonio Brown the best receiver in the league in terms of production. And Antonio Brown was a low-round pick. Antonio Brown is excellent. He's helped keep Ben Roethlisberger looking better than Ben Roethlisberger. Ben Roethlisberger might be aging the same way Eli Manning is aging, but Odell Beckham will keep Eli Manning a little bit younger, and Antonio Brown will help keep Ben Roethlisberger a little bit younger. But I'm asking you the question. You know what? I got sidetracked, though. I wanted to talk about this Steven Seagal situation and get back to this Steeler situation, which I find interesting. Yeah. We are here, but hold on a second. Fats and Info, please get me just random, weird Steven Seagal facts. I want to talk about the idea that George Foreman wants to fight Steven Seagal. I did not know this because Steven Seagal, I guess, has renounced his American citizenship and is in Russia. So he's doing Cold War stuff.
Right. I mean, that adds to the intrigue of the fight. Now you have the USA versus Russia. I mean, I am in on that. Charge me whatever you want. I'm buying it.
But I didn't realize why it is that Foreman was doing this. Now I understand. So Foreman has challenged Steven Seagal. Steven Seagal can use any style of mixed martial art that he chooses. Steven Seagal in his previous incarnation was a respected mixed martial artist. I mean, he's going to the octagon with Anderson Silva, who at the time was considered the best in the history of the sport. He would go to the octagon with him because he was respected in these circles, but he's become something of a clown. And so now he's old and he's slothy.
Yeah.
And when he moves around doing Tai Chi, he looks very slow and rigid and stiff. And so
he's tough to look at.
Yeah, I mean, he really is. He really is. He looks very unhealthy. As I said, he looks like me.
That hairpiece is so bad on him.
You're not giving yourself enough credit, man.
I'm not? You think I look better?
Way better than Steven Seagal.
You think I look better than Steven Seagal?
100%.
Cameron, put it on the poll. Does Dan look less bloated and healthier than Steven Seagal? Yes or no? Please put that on the poll.
Steven Seagal participated in this tournament or had a display displaying his Aikido skills in which he fought two Russian students. And there's all sorts of controversy surrounding this footage because most people with a brain know that these two students that he's fighting are totally faking it because he is moving at a snail's pace.
Well, but there's
no way he's winning the fight.
This is what I want to understand because I don't think that there is anybody in the world of celebrity quite as strange as Steven Seagal. I remember reading a GQ story. It might have been 15 years ago. Hell, it might have been 20 years ago. Being in L.A., I don't even remember when it was, reading a story about Steven Seagal, and the details were so shocking about the stuff going on in his life in terms of bodyguards and people trying to extort him, and that his life was always under duress. Mike, what are you laughing about?
I'm watching the Aikido footage of him fighting two guys.
It's amazing, right?
He's insisting that this is real, by the way. It is so fake. It is it's a wrestling performance.
All right. You know what? Look, man, I am so mad at our staff right now.
Why?
Because I asked them to get me weird Steven Seagal facts, and I'm going to read one of them to you.
Okay.
And I didn't want just like things people say on the internet. I wanted facts. And so I was just handed a list, and this is one of the things that was on it. Steven Seagal was poisoned in 1994 by a mysterious opponent. Seagal has never determined just who exactly it was that poisoned him back in 94, but it's pretty clear at this point that whoever this nemesis is, he's smart enough to stay hidden. Like, what? I mean, those are not weird facts about Steven Seagal. That's our crud staff pulling up just something on the internet about Seagal.
Are you looking for something like this? He shot a puppy while pretending to be a cop?
Yes, like stuff like that.
He was a 17th century monk in a past life.
No, not stuff like that.
No, wait. That's what he claims.
Okay, well, he claims it's different.
If you would have kept reading, Dan, you would have seen that it says, we all know by now that this unnamed foe conquered neither Steven Seagal's health, spirit, or acting ability, as we are to this day thriving and well. But things could have turned out much different had Seagal not wisely sought the medical advice of a Brazilian witch doctor. Yeah. This doctor promptly expelled all demonic spirits from Seagal's liver and kidneys and left him stronger in the places he'd been broken. Witch doctor.
Those are not facts. Everything that happened there is just storytelling.
He has his own energy drink.
Did you see the one about the magical dog that saved his dojo?
Guys, do you guys not know what interesting facts are?
That's pretty interesting. A mystical dog. Not just a normal dog. Did you know he broke Sean Connery's wrist once?
The dog disappeared after the fire was out.
Steven Seagal did, not the mystical dog.
Right,
never to be seen again.
I am going to do my own internet search this break, and wait till you see how much more fascinating my facts are than this crud that you guys.
Mystical dog. Mystical dog.
Those are not facts.
I told you he was a 17th century monk.
That's not a fact either.
It is on the internet. He also has a tuxedo tailor-made to conceal 2 firearms.
Yes.
See, but that's good. See, that's good.
I think I'm getting this all from the same place.
During the filming of the Bond film, Never Say Never Again, Sean Connery angered his martial arts instructor so much that he broke Connery's wrist. That instructor was Steven Seagal. That's a fact, and that's interesting.
Okay, well, but Stugotz, I'm still mad at you because you limped in with he's got his own energy drink.
Oh, that's exciting.
Oh, he does?
Yes,
cool.
Interesting.
This also isn't the first time.
It's called lightning bolt.
This also isn't the first time someone has challenged Steven Seagal to a duel. I believe Lennox Lewis has and Jean-Claude Van Damme has.
Yeah. He scored the wild invasion.
What are you laughing at now? Some other what did you find now?
I was laughing a little bit about what Fat Chris was saying there. But Sheriff Joe Arpaio once busted a cockfighting ring with armored vehicles, Steven Seagal and a SWAT team. Caused thousands of dollars in damage and euthanized all the birds.
You got something better than that, Mike? Like, that's a pretty good place to end that segment. You're leaning in with the microphone with something better than that?
No, all I got to say he's clairvoyant.
Wow.
Let's go. My private jet isn't going to fuel itself.
I saved it there, right?
Saved it? What did they say?
I gave you some great facts.
They didn't put in front of me any great facts.
The energy drink. I apologize.
I mean, really, just a lame effort by you.
On Deadly Ground was a passion project for Steven Seagal because he loves Mother Nature, and he purposely wanted to fight an evil oil tycoon. Like I said, passion project.
Dan Le Batard.
I don't know if you actually respect Steve Aoki or not, but you came off like you didn't care for him at all.
Oh, I don't.
Stugotz.
I don't care for his music. I don't care for what he represents. I don't care about the genre. I don't care about the young people who like that genre. I think it's offensive and blasphemous that they have replaced the true musicians that do real art throughout the world. I think he's a sham stealing money, a professional thief.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
Yeah, I found the story. July 17, 2002, Steven Seagal, mafia figures. He was in all sorts of trouble with the mafia. And according to court documents, the mafia was chasing a petrified Steven Seagal through Canada, the West Coast, a restaurant in Brooklyn, and there was some Godfather stuff involved. And It's not quite as good as, Mystical Dog saving his dojo. Mm-hmm. But if you guys have any other facts about Steven Seagal that you're mesmerized by, I'm happy to take them here because how old is Steven Seagal at this point? Nobody would watch that. Would you watch that? I feel like George Foreman against Steven Seagal would be something that nobody would actually pay for that.
It depends. If you believe that he was truly a 17th century monk, that changes the age a little bit.
Yeah. Seagal is 65, Foreman 68. You have Russia versus America. I'm telling you, I'd pay $200 at least for that fight.
So Seagal is 65 in this incarnation.
Right, I got you. All right, thank you.
Rapper DMX and Exit Wounds co-star once said of Steven Seagal, Steven Seagal is a bleeping bleep head with bleeping spray on hair.
Wow. Wait a minute, who said that?
DMX.
I mean, who's crazier? Put it on the poll. DMX or Steven Seagal? Good God, what was it like working on that set? Find me producers. Find me people who worked on that movie. I mean, Steven Seagal and DMX? Find me somebody to talk about what the set of that movie was like. Are you kidding me? That seems really bad for everybody involved in the production of entertainment.
This Steven Seagal fact passed along by a friend of the show, Amin Al-Hassan. At the height of Steven Seagal mania, he walked into a room with studio execs and said, "I just read the most amazing script ever." And the exec said excitedly, "Oh, man, who wrote it?" "I did."
Yeah. Yes, of course. He's also a singer, as long as he knows Japanese. He's got many black belts.
He has a tuxedo with pockets for firearms.
We already did that. You already did that.
I didn't do that already.
No, I read that one.
Sorry, I missed it.
Well, listen back to it because I think he reacted to it.
I did not react to it. Listen, someone's got to be digging for facts around here, and I was doing the digging.
You were the only one doing the digging. I haven't repeated a fact.
Well, here is the most amazing thing of everything that happened there, Mike.
He has his own energy drink.
Here is the most amazing thing about everything that happened there, and it is both the joy and the suffering of doing this show with Stugotz. It was a legitimate question I just asked, and nobody blinked an eye. I not only thought that one had already been offered, I thought Stugotz had offered that one, and it was totally plausible, the idea that he had already read that fact and forgotten that 3 minutes ago, because he does so little in the way of retention. I thought he was reading again the same thing he had already given us that we had reacted to.
A mystical dog saved his dojo.
Let's find.
Seems like you're going a long way to kind of justify the fact that you thought I read that a second time. I mean, you got something wrong there, too.
No, because I knew that we had covered it already. I thought it came from you.
Yeah. We checked the tape. You did not react, so maybe you were busy combing through Steven Seagal facts.
I was.
Too busy to listen.
So glad I didn't react to that.
So, this fight needs to happen. Immediately. Right now in the street. George Foreman against Steven Seagal. Find me as many Steven Seagal facts as you possibly can, please. Because I can't have enough of them. He is the get of all gets. I want to talk to Steven Seagal. Right now, he is the priority. There is nobody in the world I want to speak to more than Steven Seagal on this radio show. Because I want to find out what's true. I want to get to the bottom of all these stories. Do you not want to hear stories about what it was like on the set with DMX and Steven Seagal on the set of a movie? I mean, that had to just be lunacy for everyone in Hollywood. Like, what are we doing? What happened? Is that a thing that we're still doing with the movies where we pair the action star with the unusual either rapper or Dennis Rodman? Is that something that we're still doing?
Dennis Rodman.
No, but I mean, is that a thing that's still happening, whether it's Van Damme or Steven Seagal, where you can clearly see, hey, look, there's the marketing meeting where the executive said, let's pair Seagal with someone who will also bring us black audience. Like, let's put a rapper in there.
Yeah, he was there with Ja Rule for a while on DMX.
But are we still doing it? Are we still making movies like that?
I have more information on this whole 17th century monk business. So he was asked about it, and the answer he gave was, my old Buddhist teachers have identified the person I was in a past life. I was a 17th century monk called Chundrag Dorji. I believe this is true, but I don't dwell on it.
That is Straight Talk. It is brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless.
What do you mean that's Straight Talk?
That's what it was. Nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE network.
Time to check in with the NRL's leading football expert and Football Outsider film room writer, Cian Fahey.
Alex Smith is the guy who has a wide receiver wide open in the end zone and will run straight on a bounce to take a sack because he's in field goal range.
For more of his work, visit presnapricks.com.
You can't predict yak.
Serious, mate, serious.
ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Cian Fahey going to join us in just a second here on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Takes your phone call, 786-456-4837. Here's your SportsCenter update. The NBA All-Star Game is switching formats this season as two captains will select the teams without regard to which conferences the players play in. The league announced on Tuesday the players who win the fan vote from each conference will be the captains. Police told a group, including U.S. women's national team star Alex Morgan and several Orlando City players, to leave a Disney World theme park on Sunday due to public intoxication. And finally, the fake testicles Will Ferrell used in Step Brothers actually cost $25,000 to make. Ferrell was granted permission to keep the fake testes after filming that scene. For all the latest headlines and information, tune in to SportsCenter on ESPN Radio all throughout the day.
25 grand? 25? How is that possible?
It looked very realistic.
Okay. Cian Fahey with us. I'll continue to pronounce his name incorrectly. Cian Fahey, you can call him right now, 786-456-4837. I am not entrenched on my position on Alex Smith. I could be convinced otherwise if they continue playing that way and those skill guys continue playing that way. Mm-hmm. What needs to happen, for your opinion, Cian, to change on Alex Smith?
I always get asked these things about my opinion changing on players, and for me, in general, I prefer to kind of go week to week. So my answer generally is my opinion's always changing. If we take what Alex Smith has done this year, week 1 was really good. Sunday was really good as well. He was accurate in 30 of 35 passes, had that one interceptable pass, but besides that, he was good. He's still taking too many sacks, but that's not a big issue when the offense as a whole is functioning. Weeks 2 and 3, he wasn't great. There were issues there. He avoided the intermediate passes completely, had a handful of deep passes. He connected on them, so it didn't really matter that much, didn't impede them that much. The thing for me with Alex Smith is always, once we play better teams, is he going to be consistent drive to drive? Is he going to make those handful of plays that ultimately kill you? Is he going to play in a home playoff game? And it's a bit of a weird thing for me to do, because I generally am that quarterback wins guy. I'm not Stugotz saying, do it in the playoffs, do it again. But with Alex Smith, the sample is so big now. Like last year, they lost to a team that only kicked field goals, and he was a big part of that. So I kind of am going to keep holding out for a while, for the next probably 2 months. If he does this as we're going to the close of the regular season, sure, I'll be confident in him in the playoffs, but at the moment I'm still reluctant.
Your thoughts on Deshaun Watson, I guess 2 starts into his NFL career?
Yeah, Watson, I think I looked through this week the quarterbacks who've thrown 4 touchdowns this year, and it's a weird list. You've got Blake Bortles, you've got Trevor Siemian, you've got Andy Dalton, you've got Deshaun Watson, and the Titans have given up 2 of those games. And there's a big reason for that, is they weren't covering guys. The interesting thing from that game to me was less Watson's play and more that Bill O'Brien is kind of actually making an effort now. Bill O'Brien for the last couple of years has kind of run this offense where his quarterback drops back in the pocket, throws the ball downfield. In that game, 9 of Watson's first 13 attempts came off of different play actions. And it wasn't just the same play action in the pocket, it was play action out of the pocket, it was play actions with different looks from different formations. And it really pulled the Titans' defense apart completely. On a couple of plays, they completely forgot to cover Lamar Miller. Late in the game, he scored a touchdown when no one covered him. Earlier in the game, there was a play fake, and Lamar Miller ran to the flat, and Watson could just check the ball to him, and he run 31 yards downfield. In general, we need to stop overreacting to like a 5-touchdown game. The last quarterback who had a 5-touchdown game was for the Texans was Ryan Fitzpatrick, and it was a 6-touchdown game. I think it was against the Titans again, and it was a very similar performance where the ball wasn't really telling us what the quarterback was doing. It was telling us more that the defense just wasn't functioning.
All right, so wait a minute.
Watson as a whole,
if I may,
Watson
so wait
as a whole, there are positives, but
people are wrong. So people are wrong on Watson. It's not just last game. The last 2 games, he's been really good. What you're seeing when you break down the film is something that is less good.
Well, I'm not sure if you're wrong. Like, if you're comparing him to like Andrew Luck's rookie year or even Robert Griffin III's rookie year, I wouldn't be saying that. He wasn't as good as Dak last year, kind of a thing. Like maybe Carson Wentz is probably the right comparison. Because remember this time last year with Carson Wentz, everyone was saying he's going to be great, and I don't think he's been great to this point. The interesting thing with Watson is he's doing, like, when he came out of college, the concerns were he can't throw a deep ball, there's very limited arm strength, he runs into sacks a little too much, and he's very, very much panicking, and he turns the ball over too much. Those things haven't shown up massively yet, but they're playing the Chiefs this week, and that's the first real NFL defense he's faced, because against the Patriots you can do what you want, against the Titans you could do what you want, and even in that Patriots game he missed a third down conversion that was wide open, he missed a touchdown that was wide open late in the fourth quarter that would have iced that game.
Justin, you're on with Cian Fahey. Go ahead. What do you got for him? Go ahead, Justin.
What you saw from E.J. Manuel, did it look like that he actually has improved and can carry the Raiders while Derek Carr's out?
E.J. Manuel, I'm kind of amazed that E.J. Manuel's still in the league, but he was really, really good in that Broncos game, which is very weird. E.J. Manuel, the concern I always had with him was he's got two velocities. He throws either no velocity on the ball, so it floats through the air and can be easily picked off, or he throws the ball 100 miles an hour. And that wasn't really on show against the Broncos, but it was like a quarter and a half of a sample, so there's not really much to go by. He did have one really good touchdown throw down the seam to Jared Cook that Cook dropped. He should have held on to. It was the most positive kind of you could get from a short sample, from a small sample, but overall, when you're turning to E.J. Manuel, you can't have expectations because his career as a whole has just been so bad.
Yes or no, Jared Cook is good?
Jared Cook? No. He spends all his time dropping passes. And
okay.
But Aaron Rodgers last
year. I wanted to ask to get the no. That's it. We can move on. Randy, you're on with Fahey. Go ahead.
What's up with the Packers backfield? Williams says he's good to go. Who starts this week, and do they beat the Cowboys?
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. This is not how he does this. He does more analysis. That's from Mortensen and Schefter. If you want to, have your fantasy team updated. Daniel, you're on with Fahey. Go ahead. Go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, I wanted to know if Deshaun Kaiser is ready for the NFL, and if he is, what does he have to do to get better, because he's not playing very well?
Yeah, well, Kenny Britt's kind of killing him at the moment. Kenny Britt, the first drive of that game ended because Kenny Britt ran an awful route and tripped coming out of his break. A couple of drives later, when they were in scoring position, Kaiser threw a pass to Kenny Britt and they hit him in the chest and bounced off him and went to a defender. Kaiser, the first couple of weeks, Hugh Jackson was really asking him to do a lot. He was throwing the ball downfield every other play. It's not a coincidence that Jackson said his best game was this past weekend, and it was when they actually played with more of a normal offense. Right now, he's still trying to figure everything out. You have to remember with Kaiser, he's very, very young. He's the youngest quarterback in the league starting right now. I think he's still only 20. If he's not, he's just turned 21. So he's going to take a while to just calm down, for the whole game to slow down for him. The concern with him outside of that is his accuracy, and that's been a problem so far. He needs to be more accurate.
What's going on with Amari Cooper, and what the hell, last couple of weeks, the Raiders' offensive line? Is that the defensive line of Washington, or what's happening there?
I wish I could explain the Raiders' offensive line. I can't. I think they were fine last week. The Washington game has been a bit of an abnormality, I think. That Washington defensive front. Funnily enough, it was one of the ones I highlighted entering the year as lacking talent. But with the coaching, Jim Tomsula, I know Jim Tomsula on this show specifically is laughed at a lot. But as a defensive line coach, that guy's history is phenomenal. He's the reason Justin Smith became a star in San Francisco. He's the reason they've consistently had really good defensive linemen. And now he's in Washington, and he's doing the same thing with Jonathan Allen, who was a rookie. He's getting some play out of Ziggy Hood, even, who was a guy whose career was over last year. But I don't really know how to explain the Raiders. Amari Cooper has always had drop issues. They just they show up sometimes, they don't show up other times. That's simply a matter of focus.
I'm not even talking about drop issues. Right. I'm talking about production. I'm talking about one catch for 9 yards stuff.
Well, before he got injured, Derek Carr wasn't really playing well. He wasn't being aggressive. He wasn't pushing the ball. Actually, there was a trend last year, if you kind of went through all their games, where they would either focus on Michael Crabtree throughout the whole game, or they would focus on Amari Cooper all the way throughout the game. And it was a very difficult one to explain, because it wasn't about the cornerbacks they were facing. It didn't really seem to be a specific game plan thing. It was just what Carr did. Cooper is still a really, really good receiver. I wouldn't have any concerns about him individually. They just have to try and focus the ball on him and get him into a role in the offense.
You tweeted out yesterday with some video attached to it. Imagine if Tyrod Taylor had actual receivers to throw to. What do you think it would look like if he had actual receivers to throw to? How good could he be?
we're talking about Alex Smith there, and this is kind of why they brought in Patrick Mahomes. But Tyrod Taylor in that Andy Reid offense would be phenomenal because he's got that athleticism that Alex Smith also has, where you get that diverse running game, but he also would be able to take shots downfield to speedy receivers. In Buffalo, they've got Zay Jones, who's a rookie. They've got Jordan Matthews, who can't create any separation. And then they've got whoever else is there. It doesn't even really matter to mention. But the Tyrod is like an average to above average passer in a good situation. He's a guy who you probably don't want to be carrying your offense. You want to be kind of a defensive-oriented team, but because he takes care of the football, because he creates his own big plays, there's a lot of value in him. He's better than a guy like Andy Dalton, though, even though Dalton will probably have better numbers because he's got AJ Green and Tyler Eifert and a better offensive line.
What have you seen over the last couple of weeks that you think is hugely interesting? What has surprised you? What do you got for me in terms of a player or something that has been baffling to you?
Shaq Griffin in Seattle. The Seahawks have this reputation of being great at finding...
Argument you think you're having.
Go ahead.
I think what you're really saying here, Stephen A., actually can be...
Bad.
Just missed it.
Just missed it. That's okay. Go ahead, Cian.
The Seahawks have this reputation of being great at getting cornerbacks, but they never really have. They've always been benefited from Richard Sherman and Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor. And they've got this rookie over there now called Shaq Griffin, who physically looks like Richard Sherman, but he's actually playing like Richard Sherman too, where he's got this great length, he's really physical, he can find the ball in the air, and he's very comfortable in space. And that's not something I ever said about Byron Maxwell. So I think if he keeps playing the way he has, and if he keeps developing over the course of the season, you might see that defense get even more aggressive and allow Earl Thomas to be even more reading the quarterback's eyes rather than kind of reacting to the routes around him or trying to cover for a lesser cornerback.
What else? Give me some more. Give me some more crumbs.
You love those nuggets.
Some more crumbs. Give us some more crumbs. The stuff you're seeing no one else is seeing.
It's kind of waned off a little bit now because Sam Bradford's been injured, but the Vikings offensive line, that change there has been really, really interesting because if you remember before the season, you probably don't if you don't follow closely, but Alex Boone was a left guard for the Vikings before the season who was kind of randomly cut. And Boone is a really big left guard, a guy who plays in a power scheme where you want to run the ball behind him, where he pulls and takes a defender out and knocks him over. And they've changed their offensive line completely now. They've gone to this zone scheme where they've got smaller, faster guys. And someone who's really, really stood out is Pat Elflein at centre, who I think played for Ohio State last year, but he's a rookie. He was a third-round pick. And the thing with him is he gets out in space and he locates guys in space, and it allows them to have this more diverse running game. It allows them to run these different screens. It allows Dalvin Cook to be as effective as he was. Now that Dalvin Cook's gone, we might not see the impact, and because Bradford's out as well, we're not really seeing the impact. But that offensive line looks like it's set up with those receivers to be a really good supporting cast moving forward.
Thank you, sir. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Money, 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 money.
You could follow him at CIANAF and check him out on ESPN's The Nickel Package podcast. He hosts it Tuesdays with David Jacoby. Also, see his work at presnapreads.com.
Dan Le Batard.
Called common sense reporting, Dan. Connect the dots.
Stugotz.
I would not describe your sense as common.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
This is funny, man. Listen to this, Stugotz. These are just back-to-back texts, one after another.
Okay.
When Cian Fahey talks football, I feel like an addict sinking into my couch, escaping to a realm I never want to come home from. This is followed by get a real football expert on next time. Bleep that guy. Then another guy writes in, he knows nothing. Like, come on, dude. You call in 205-332, rest of your number. You call in and show me how much you know.
Let's do that, please.
He knows nothing. I see you, 205-533. Not going to give the rest of the number because I don't want all 70,000 people calling you, but I see you. You call in right now and tell us how much you know. I'll give you the floor for 30 seconds, 205.
Listen, I've said for years, and I've done it. We've actually done bits like this where you could fake a lot of this stuff. I could be a quarterback expert. I could be a football expert. I could be a draft expert. We've done it on the show a baseball expert. I could do any of it. But I actually know Cian. I've gotten to know Cian a little bit. That guy studies so much film,
but wait a minute. Never mind studying film. You can hear it in his analysis. You don't have to agree with him, but you can hear that he's informed. Like, what are you talking about?
It's weird the blowback Cian Fahey gets because...
Hold on. Guillermo, what are you laughing about?
I know Cian.
No, that's another thing.
He's a good friend of mine.
Yeah, that's how ridiculous.
I've watched film with him.
Yeah, like if they're breaking down film, that's another thing. He met him because Cian came through here a couple weeks ago. That's the only time he's ever seen him.
Probably a bottle of something. It was delicious.
What's going on there? Because Cian sort of lumped in with these, number cruncher, you advanced metrics types. He watches film all the time.
Well, he's on with us because he's uncommonly informed, and when I hear him talk, I am getting information that when I look at our network is not what I'm getting in a lot of places. So I hear him, and I'm like, oh, okay, he's got strong opinions, and they're opinions that are informed, and he's going to be wrong on stuff. I'm not saying that he's right about everything, but that's somebody whose information is good.
And he pumps out good stats, but it's not just something that comes across a computer. He's watching all the film, and he's collecting data from what he's watching.
Well, but what is happening there? Explain to me what's happening there with he knows nothing. Like, I just don't understand how. No, seriously.
He said something bad about a quarterback that guy thinks is good. I'm telling you, or he's a fan of. That's what happens.
Okay. Okay, but that's where we are just on everything conversationally, right? That anything you say about any subject these days, whether it's Tom Petty or Hugh Hefner,
yes,
the response is he knows nothing.
Correct.
It's the response is some form of we're going to argue about everything.
Like
an absolute and extreme term.
Right. Like I know Eagle fans have been they've been giving Cian a hard time on Twitter because he's been critical of Carson Wentz. Not saying he's terrible, but also not saying he's great. They want to hear that he's great.
Well, but one of the reasons I appreciate Cian Fahey's work is at least in part because it happens all the time where I think I've seen someone play well and he tells me I'm wrong. And because he's breaking it down, he's doing drops, he's doing interceptable passes, he's doing a bunch of different things where a guy throws 3 interceptable passes. That's not a good quarterbacking day.
Right.
Even if there are no interceptions.
Or that Kenny Britt is killing your quarterback because he doesn't run good routes or he's tripping coming out of his...
Well, Kenny Britt, that one has been obvious that Kenny Britt has been really bad this year. That one, if you've been stuck watching any Browns football, you've gotten really mad. In fact, I dare say he's the most unpopular person in a Browns uniform right now.
Maybe. I'm just saying, Dan, there's so much we don't see. That's all I'm saying. There's so much we don't see when we watch the game live.
That's right. Well, most of us, yes. Most of us.
Gave Terrell Pryor's money to Kenny Britt. Ridiculous.
Pryor
Stealing money. Stealing money.
Pryor chose the Redskins, though.
No, they chose Kenny Britt. They chose Kenny Britt.
Mm-hmm. Stan Van Gundy. Not that he's hostile about it or anything. Stan Van Gundy joins us next.
Hi, everyone. Stugotz here. Support for the Dan Le Batard Show podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you are confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, and your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you the same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. Rocket Mortgage is simple, allowing you to fully understand all the details and be confident you are getting the right mortgage for you. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Stugotz. That's rocketmortgage.com/Stugotz, STUGOTZ. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states. NMLS consumeraccess.org number 3030.
You're listening to Love Advice with Leanne. Caller, you're on the air.
Hi, Leanne. Longtime listener, first-time caller. Why, in your professional opinion, do you never take my calls off the air?
Is this Carl?
Yep, it's Carl. I mean, we had a few dates. Everything was great. I thought,
Well, when you switch to Geico, you could save a lot of money on car insurance.
Okay, awesome.
You should call them.
I will.
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
You can always count on Bud Light, just like you can always count on Always Game Gary. No bar is too far. No wing sauce is too hot. Not for Gary. Always Game Gary is famous among friends. He deserves a Bud Light. Enjoy responsibly. Bud Light Beer, AB St. Louis, Missouri.
Dan Le Batard.
Forget this off-court stuff now, because I already brought that up. That's far more serious, and I appreciate your answers with that. But on the basketball court, on a lighter level, you have put a spotlight on your sons.
He put a spotlight on them.
If you are just joining us, we are watching First Take. We go back now to live coverage.
Stugotz.
But Daddy elevating him the way that you do. You cutting checks. Your son's going to have to cash, as Max said.
No checks. Y'all the one trying to cash these checks.
LeVar, does it ever seem to you like everyone's outraged by by a lot of people who
Max, get out of the way, Max!
Yeah.
Max, get out of the way! This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
There are a lot of people who come on here and we say we like this guy, we love this guy, we love talking to this guy. This guy right here is someone that I have actual love for, not just the content that he produces, but this is a human being whose very being I love.
I have love for him as well. I'm not certain the feeling's mutual, but I do love Stan Van Gundy.
Okay, so we've got a lot to talk. That laugh, there it is, that laugh. And now he's going to say a bunch of stuff that's going to righteously make a lot of you very angry over the course of this segment. But let's start here with something soft. Stan Van Gundy, he's not going to take any of the credit for this, but he's got a dog, Eastwood. He is a lab mix, and Eastwood was born with leg deformities. He was nearly blind, and he was wandering in the cold, and he was the last dog in the shelter on an Empty the Shelters pet adoption day, and nobody wanted this animal. And Stan Van Gundy came in because he's a sucker for a 17-year-old daughter, and they got the dog. So explain to me what was happening there with Eastwood in the kennel. When you got there, how profoundly sad were you, or were you just being relayed information by your profoundly sad family?
Well, no, yeah, you felt bad for the dog because a lot of people actually were interested in adopting him, but at the end of the day didn't because, you know, he's probably going to have, you know, over the next couple of years, you know, $5,000 or so worth of surgeries on his eyes and his leg, and you know that's a lot of money for a dog, and particularly a shelter dog. So we're fortunate enough to have the means to be able to do it, and I think that we got incredibly lucky. So after some hard times originally, because what we hadn't counted on was some aggression issues, but we got him to a dog behaviorist. We got him some good training. We have a team now. We have a team for Eastwood of people, and he has changed dramatically, and it's just a great, great dog. He has eye surgery coming up on Halloween Day. The leg will probably wait a little bit, maybe until the summer. But he's got some work to do. But in terms of his demeanor, his disposition,
you're talking about him like a player. Like,
I want to hear more about this team.
Absolutely. We went across the state to Lansing, to Michigan State, to the top animal behaviorist in the state. You know, it's like with a lot of people, I guess. You know, just his brain chemistry wasn't right. And so he would get aggressive. No, so he's on Prozac, and he's on an ADHD medication, and it has totally transformed him to a dog that when we first got him, Dan, we had to have him on leash in the house even. Somebody was always holding him because he was going after our cats, and he'd gotten aggressive with people at times, and now he's the sweetest dog in the world.
Oh, but your compassion knows no limits, because that come on, dog, blind dog with bad legs. I just saved you from the kennel. You're not going to be biting the people in the house I brought you to. Bad dog.
Yeah, no, you know what? But it's again, and it really does make you think about things with people, and I'm being real serious here. Like, it wasn't a bad dog. It was a dog whose brain chemistry needed help. These are medical issues, and there's some people like that too. And if you can get them the right help, they can be, you know, live very successfully and be great. I mean, this dog is a great dog now. Now people who knew about Eastwood before come into our house. They can't believe the transformation. So
I am so tempted to just ask you questions about nothing but Eastwood. I'm so tempted to do this whole segment asking you Eastwood questions, but I know you've got a million thoughts on a million different things here. First, you created a stir the other day by saying something that I thought was totally not controversial, but people are so used to the draft. You said, let's eliminate the draft. Let's just get rid of it. The draft is stupid, right?
Okay, I was informed yesterday, you know, that, and I hadn't meant to, but I was running afoul of the league on this. I'm not supposed to comment on anything that is a collective bargaining issue. So I just talked to the assistant general counsel of the league yesterday, So that one I got to stay away from because it's a CBA.
All right,
deal.
did not know that.
Liked you better when you weren't coaching.
Obviously, I didn't either, and I ended up getting myself in trouble.
This is the reason you've stopped coming on with us, right?
Yes,
because
yes.
you do dumb stuff all the time that you didn't know was against the rules.
Oh man, I mean, I just. Yeah, I just can't help myself, I guess. So, all
right. Well,
they were very nice about it and just reminded me last night. The guy was great. Didn't find me or anything. Just said, you're not supposed to be talking about those things because they're part of the collective bargaining agreement, and so I'm not going to do it again.
All right. Well, let's go on to a different subject matter. I'm real curious on your thoughts on everything that's happening in the NFL. Because you have to be watching this and marveling at it.
Yeah, look, first of all, I mean, I'm just, I'm really proud of the athletes who have done the protesting. In large part, I think, are very, very thoughtful about the protest, know exactly what they're protesting, and have been willing to, take the boos and the anger, the wrath of the fans, if you will, to make a statement about prevalent racial injustice in this country and, take the consequences of those protests. I've been really proud of the athletes who would do it. I think anybody who has the chance to speak their mind about issues that are important to them, especially issues that are important to our entire country and the very core beliefs of our country, I think they should express those opinions. But I'm even prouder when it's young people doing it, and I'm prouder of the athletes because the athletes are ones who have been blessed. They've been able, whatever the problems are, they felt some of them growing up. They've now been able to overcome them, and instead of just taking care of themselves, they've been willing to speak out on the behalf of other people who don't have voices in this. And some very oppressed people. So I've been proud of professional athletes, whether it's the NFL guys, whether it's the women in the WNBA, who probably have really been the people who've spoken out consistently, just aren't on TV as much and things, and then the people in our league who have already made statements. I'm really proud of those younger people taking an active role in what's going on in our country.
Stan Van Gundy with us here on ESPN Radio. Stan, what would you say to a player on your team if he came up to you and said, Coach, I know the league policy, but this is really important to me. I want to take a knee for the national anthem. How would you respond to that?
Well, this is actually not hypothetical. We've already done that with our guys. And, both myself and our owner, Tom Gores, have made it eminently clear that from our perspective, we will support whatever it is that they choose to do. That we think they not only have the right, in my opinion, not only, like I said, I've told them not only the right to speak your mind, but if an issue is important to you, I almost think you have a responsibility to speak your mind. What we have said is this: two things. Number one, make sure you know what you're protesting if you're going to protest. I don't think it's a good idea to simply kneel down because other people are kneeling down. If you're going to do anything like that in protest, you're going to get questions, and you want to be able to articulate your position on things. And then number two, understand who you're trying to reach. And I think that's a little bit of a tough thing because, if all you want to do is speak to the oppressed communities and show solidarity with them, then there's probably one type of protest that does that very well. If you are trying to sort of reach the people in the middle who may basically agree with you on the issues, but disagree some with the way you do it, maybe you find a different way. But that's been our only two things. And at the end of the day, whatever they decide to do, we'll be behind them. If it's a thoughtful, appropriate protest, and appropriate to me means it's peaceful. If somebody's going to go out there and, incite violence, obviously that's a different thing. But to me, no peaceful protest can be inappropriate.
Do you have a theory as to why it is that basketball seems to have a better handle on this than football does?
Well, I mean, our audience is certainly younger and more diverse. than football. I think if we could survey those two things, I know for sure. And I think if we could survey political beliefs of fans, I think you would find our fans to be far more progressive and liberal overall than NFL fans are. I think NFL fans, my guess would be that after NASCAR fans would probably be the most conservative sports fans there are. And so I don't think our fans have as big a problem with this, though it's certainly can be a divisive issue, the protests. Our league is 75%, I think, around that African American, but which isn't that much more than the NFL. The difference is the number of white Americans in our league playing is very, very small. You know, a large part of what's left after the 75% African Americans is a lot of foreign players. So it's just a different demographic, both as players in our league and in our audience. And also, quite honestly, I think that we have a leadership in our league with Adam Silver at the helm, who has given everybody the opportunity to speak out. And even I would say between Adam Silver and Michelle Roberts, the head of the Players Association, has probably even encouraged them to speak their mind, and I don't think that's the case in other leagues.
We're out of time, unfortunately. I'm just curious how much you weigh. You see what Popovich is doing. You see what Steve Kerr is doing. You have been opinionated on the subject of the president of the country, but how often do you measure yourself, because you don't want to be spending all your time? I mean, Popovich is spending an inordinate amount of his time, doing essays, tapestries, where he's giving us more views than he ever gives us on anything on this subject. How do you manage that one personally?
Well, I try to speak out as questions come to me. I haven't necessarily sought out a platform. Look, I'm really proud of Pop and of Steve Kerr, because here's the thing that they have that none of the rest of us have, is they're unassailable. So, you know, if you're going to be someone out there who is going to try to hang the unpatriotic label on somebody, and they're anti-military and anti the country, it's going to be hard with those two guys. Pop's a military guy, an Air Force Academy graduate, served in the military. You're going to have a hard time hanging that label on him. Steve Kerr's family. Steve Kerr lost his father in service of the country as a diplomat. You're going to have a hard time with those two guys hanging that label on them. And so the fact that those two will speak out, both with their great success as coaches and what their families, themselves and their families, have given to the country, those two guys are our leaders. I think that the rest of us can just follow along and make our views known. We can all play a small part to those two guys' leadership role.
But you're as passionate about this and as eloquent, I feel like, and as emotional. But you choose to follow because you're more assailable?
Well, no, I don't think I'm assailable. I think those guys, they have, just their backgrounds are more unassailable. But look, I'm always going to speak out. I just think, personally, this shut up and stick to sports things. I mean, so let's tell Bill Gates to shut up and stick to business. I mean, we could use that on everybody, that kind of logic, which would mean the only people who get to speak out are politicians. And in a lot of cases, I think they're the ones screwing things up. I think the rest of us need to speak out. And I think every citizen has the right to speak out. And when it comes to matters of conscience, I really think you're almost required to speak out. I mean, if you don't have strong feelings on something, that's fine. But when you do and you have the platform and it's a matter of conscience and it's a matter of justice, to not speak out, to me, is morally wrong.
Much love, Stan. We'll talk soon, buddy. Thank you for making the time.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Thank you, Stan.
Dan Le Batard. Stugotz. When you have the hammer, You gotta use it. This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
One of the many reasons that I like talking to Stan Van Gundy, and really many of the people that we have come through here, whether it's Dominique or Mina or Sarah Spain or Amin, is they consistently surprise me with some things that I had not considered. I had not even considered for a moment the idea that Steve Kerr and Popovich on this stuff, even if you disagree with their politics, that you can attack some of them in the normal places. I hadn't even considered the whole idea of them being unassailable, not just in terms of what their family history is, right, but with a job security that is also unusually uncommon.
I've stopped surprising you, haven't I?
Oh, we made it about you again. Okay. That's fairly amazing. I mean, yes is the answer to your question.
Also, not a surprise.
Yeah. It just dawned on me as you said that. Like you said, Stan and everyone who comes through here, they constantly surprise you, and it just dawned on me that I've stopped surprising you. And in fact, I don't think I've ever surprised you at all.
No, that's not true.
Oh,
No, here's the thing, okay, as you make this about you and us in a fairly amazing way. You have many strengths and many values. Insight? Do you think of insight as one of them?
No. Can there be negative surprises? Like
you sometimes surprise me in ways that I'm horrified that you have no shame. Like I'm
okay.
Thank
you.
The extreme
levels, I'm still surprising
the extreme levels of things that I know to be so about you sometimes surprise me in their extremity.
Thank you. So I'm glad we covered that.
Compliment.
Well, it felt like one, and so I'm glad. So we covered that, and now let's continue with the conversation.
But I'm just curious. Well, here, how about this? Because I think you guys know that I love and value Stugotz, but surprise you with insight?
Nope.
That's not.
Nope. I'm incapable of insight.
I don't think you're incapable.
I'm not good at it. It's not a strength. I'm self-aware, man. It's okay. You're not going to hurt my feelings. It's cool. I've stopped surprising you. I surprise you for all the wrong reasons.
But it just sounded like a complaint from a partner in the bedroom. Like it sounded like, why are you looking at that man or that woman instead of me? Why are you?
No, listen, I'm here with you every day for 4 hours a day. As you said it, I kind of felt bad that I have stopped. That's not me. Like, I don't provide the insight that surprises you and changes the way you're thinking.
Your behavior surprises me all the time. Much of it humorous, some of it disgusting. Your behavior surprises me all the time. The things that your thoughts on sports do not surprise me. I mean,
I got a doozy on Durant. I mean, this guy. I mean, old shortcut. How about him? Couldn't beat he couldn't beat the Golden State Warriors up 3-1 in the Western Conference Finals. You've never heard this before. 3-1 in the Western Conference Finals. Couldn't beat him. Best player in the world. Could not close him out. So. Couldn't beat him. What does he do? He joins them. And I got to tell you, he may think he won an NBA championship, but in my personal record book, he still doesn't have one.
All right, playing one of the hits. One of the hits.
Surprising you with insight.
Okay. Here's something surprising for you. Mark Richt is going to join us in about 10 minutes, and I want to play a portion of this commercial that he was in, but I don't want to tell him what it is. I just want to play this sound for him and see if he recognizes this. This was a commercial Mark Richt was in, I think, in 1982.
Blue Jesus presenta dall'insuperabile modello base 4 porte più una. Oggi anche la versione turbo. Ha sospensioni super molleggiate. Eccezionale per la tenuta di strada. Carrozzeria antiruggine. Freni a disco. Disponibile in una vasta gamma di colori. Blu, blu, blu. Blue.
Blue jeans, blue Jesus. A voice from America.
Now, do you think he will recognize any of that before we get to the end? He was jumping rope in that video for some reason. In that commercial, Mark Richt was jumping rope, and I just want to play it for him and see how quickly he recognizes it. That's one of the things we're going to do with Mark Richt. Next, I enjoyed talking to Mark Richt about ridiculous things. We're also going to talk to him about that time in Key West that he stole something drunk. Like he stole one of their, I think he stole one of their big landmarks. That was last week.
Don Le Batard.
There's a belief that there's gold in the heads of bald men, so police in Mozambique are warning bald men.
Stugotz.
I'd cut my own head off if I were bald. See if there's gold in there. I like money.
This is the Don Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
All right, let's find out if Mark Richt does Halloween. Thank you for joining us. As always, Coach, always appreciate you making time for us. Give us your best Halloween story, since we're talking about, the holidays, and we're talking about what do you, let's go. What do you got?
Halloween stories. Well, my mom was a seamstress, okay, and so she would get those patterns, and then she would take the cloth and she'd cut the cloth and she'd sew it together with her whatever Singer sewing machine, whatever it was. But she made the best Batman, Robin, Catwoman in the history of kids like gear. It was not something you just get out of a plastic bag. It was something that was just made customized for us. And I was Batman, and I think my brother Craig was Robin, and my sister Mickey was Catwoman. And that was we were in our glory. It was unreal. But now for my kids, I have to admit my son David wore a Scooby-Doo outfit. I'm talking about a full Scooby-Doo with the ears and the tail and the whole bit, probably into age 12, which it was only fitting when he was like 8, and he kept like squeezing in that bad boy, and he would go all around everywhere publicly. It was kind of a year-round thing for him. But when it comes to costumes, he was the king in our family.
Guillermo, why are you making faces? What's happening here? What's happening?
Your son dressed like Scooby-Doo all the time for 4 years?
Oh, yeah. Well, it was more than that. It was what was it? Space Invaders, and it was Bible Man, and it was like, I can't even name all the characters. Any character that was cool, he had a costume for. We really had a treasure, a big chest. You'd throw a bunch of clothes in there, and he had like probably 20 costumes, and he'd pick out the one he wanted that day and go be Spider-Man.
Okay, I'm curious, what do you think of Jim Harbaugh's theory here? Let's play for Mark Richt how Jim Harbaugh does Halloween.
You can get a lot of candy by going out there and walking from house to house, but you can get a lot more by jogging from house to house. And if you can sprint, then you'll get the most candy.
Right. But okay, yeah. So do your kids train for Halloween?
We get prepared. And that's the strategy, is to run, go as long as we can, as fast as we can. And the strategy of having a second costume ready. Once you've hit every house in the neighborhood, you want to come home, you want to change into a secondary costume and go back and hit all the houses again.
Excellent.
That's impressive.
What?
That's well thought out. I mean, that's pretty good. But hearing about him running to get more candy, that's what I used to do when I used to valet cars at the Boca Raton Hotel and Club. If you had a big event and if you would run to get the cars, you'd make a lot more money than if you'd waited for the little van to take you out there to go get the cars. And that's how I got back in shape to try out for the Miami Dolphins. It was great. I got cut from the Broncos the year before, and I was done, and then I took that valeting job, and I'm chasing cars, and making good money, and I'm like, I'm in the best shape of my life. I got to try again. So sure enough, I got in the got in the Miami Dolphin camp and got cut about a month later. It was awesome.
Coach, you ever take one of those cars for a joyride?
Oh, come on.
Come on, Coach. Coach, come on. I valet cars too, Coach.
How many times did you?
Not too far, but a little bit farther than I should have taken.
Which one? What kind of car? Which is the one you took?
You know what I fell in love with was a Jaguar. That's what when you closed the door, you heard nothing but silence. And then that's a pretty good sound systems too in there.
How far did you go? How loud was the radio? Come on. How fast?
It was loud. It might have been around the block. I wasn't that brave. I needed the money.
All right. Well, you've said you needed the money. I want to know if you got any money for this. See if you recognize any of this. Just start shouting when you recognize what this is that we're playing for you. Just start shouting. I want to hear your voice yelling. All right, I got it.
Blue Jesus presenta dall'insuperabile modello base 4 porte più una. Oggi anche la versione turbo a sospensione.
He's got it.
I think I know
what are you doing? What was that?
He said he thinks he knows what it is. What is it?
The man's got to make a living.
What is it?
I think it was a commercial for some blue Jesus jeans or something.
Blue.
Back in college.
Blue. Blue.
And none of us got paid.
What?
We all thought we were auditioning. They filmed us and left town, and then they made the commercial. And I didn't make anything. I mean, I'm not in the Screen Actors Guild making some money here at the end. I mean, I don't know what's up
All
with
right,
that.
so you got nothing. So there was nothing. So this is dirty. It feels dirty because they were using you for your good looks there, weren't they?
Well, I don't know what to say other than I did get on the camera, and I was in some country selling jeans. So, I mean, what can I say? I'm gifted.
All right. Congratulations to the star of the Jesus Jeans commercials. Were those religious jeans? What?
I don't know.
Jesus jeans, man.
I know, but I don't know.
I knew nothing, but they said jump on a trampoline with some girl, and that's what I did.
They don't look very religious from the footage I'm watching.
They're blue jeans.
All right. The question I promised the audience I would ask you again was about your crazy Key West days. Now, what happened?
No, don't ask me that. That takes too long, and it really might be incriminating. And then my players will be like, "Coach, you did this when you were in college," and I just can't. Right. I can't go there.
All right, so he stole something that he shouldn't have stolen.
I borrowed it. Me and my roommates.
Still have it?
How long was it in your room? How long?
Till Coach Snellenberger saw it and asked us where we got it, and then we didn't have a very good answer, and we had to get rid of it. But the one thing we did do, it was a sign. It was the Key West sign, the southernmost spot in the United States, of the continental United States. That was the sign, and we borrowed it. We wanted to use it for a show and tell in class, and we tied it down the top of our car with our tennis shoe strings. We thought that would work. And when it blew off and was out in the middle of the road somewhere, we had to pick it up and stick it in the Gremlin with us, and all four of us kind of bent our heads down and sucked it up all the way back to Miami.
Amazing.
I appreciate you reluctantly telling that story again. The turnover chain. Whose idea?
Yeah.
Whose idea was it?
Well, I don't know for sure. As a defensive coaches, for sure. I don't know who individually thought of it, but I know Coach Diaz sprung it on me like half an hour before kickoff, game one. He goes, "Oh, by the way, we got this chain, and if somebody gets the turnover, we're going to let them put it on the sideline." And I was like, "Okay." He goes, "I think it's kind of gaudy," and he goes, "But I think it'll be, might be good." I said, "Okay, go ahead." And but I'll be honest, the biggest problem we got with that thing is if a kid gets a turnover, he can't wait to put the chain on. So on the way off the field, he's popping off his helmet because it won't fit over the helmet. So we got to make sure the chain is like back on the bench.
All right, so you don't get penalized for taking it.
Yeah, we get a penalty. I mean, twice. We really should have got penalized there. I'm getting warnings, thankfully, but the next time it happens, the guy's going to be 5 yards from the sideline, pop his helmet off, and then we'll get a 15-yarder, and then I have to get rid of the chain. So,
all right, Coach, but you okayed this, you approved it, but you didn't see the chain. So once you actually saw the chain, what was your reaction?
Your defensive coordinator.
Yeah. I didn't even see it at the game. I mean, I'm looking forward. I'm not turning around behind the bench to see who's wearing a chain. I'm trying to coach. And then when the game was over, and then I got on the internet somehow, or somebody shipped it to me and showed me this thing, and they were right. I mean, it's Miami, baby. It looks good.
It's gaudy. I love that Diaz was running a scam. He didn't tell you that until a half hour before the game.
I think it was maybe game day that morning. It goes, "Oh, by the way, we got this chain." It's one of those I'm going to ask for forgiveness instead of permission type things.
Yes. Good luck, Coach, this weekend. We would have talked about your team, but maybe next time.
Maybe next time. We'll see you guys.
All right.
Don Le Batard.
Stugotz is disgusting.
Stugotz.
Yep.
This is the Don Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
I'm going to give you no context whatsoever for the last thing that Stugotz said before the microphones went on. But this sentence fell from the lips of Stugotz. If I got hit in the same spot by a baseball, it would have been nowhere near my penis. That was the last sentence uttered before the microphone lights went on around here.
The Fall Football Tour on ESPN Radio is brought to you by Goodyear, reminding you that the Rosillo Show will be live from Burlington this Friday, covering the University of Vermont's homecoming. You will? Goodyear, hard-working tires that deliver blimp-worthy performance.
Talking about Gary Sanchez? I didn't hit him there.
All right.
He faked it.
Okay.
You think so? I mean, he stayed in the game.
Physics.
I think I'm with you.
Didn't really match up.
I want to ask you guys this about the turnover chain that we just talked about with Mark Richt. These guys have to make so many decisions. So the idea that is presented to you 30 minutes before a game, and now you've got to decide, wait a minute, is that okay? Is that a thing that we want to do? Mm-hmm. You realize old University of Miami teams simply couldn't have done that, right? Like there has been a shift. Young people have gotten a louder voice, and their sensibilities are touching things more often because once upon a time, if there were a turnover chain at the University of Miami, that would have not been viewed as funny.
No, not
That's
at all.
Not cool, not funny, not interesting, not Miami. It would have been threatening. It would have been bad. What's wrong with those punks? Like those Miami teams couldn't have done that.
But, they could have. It just would have came with a lot of backlash, right? Like I think Jimmy Johnson would have allowed it.
I know, but that's what happens when you're scared of something. They were running roughshod over college football. Their behavior off the field was bad. And so if on top of that, it would have been a symbol of lack of control. And I'm just fascinated by the way times have changed. Like, good. I'm glad. I'm glad. I thought it was weird when I was in college that these guys were behaving in a way that was really enjoying football, doing backflips in the end zone to celebrate touchdowns, and then they changed the celebration rules because those guys were having fun. Can you imagine one of those guys now bringing a chain onto the field or near the field?
No, but it's the timing of it, and you're right. Back then, when Jimmy was coaching or Dennis, it would have fed into what everyone already thought about the University of Miami.
I'm just telling you, I'm happier. It's one of the things in 2017 that actually represents small progress. I'm happy that you guys now see the turnover chain and you don't. You can laugh with it as a good idea.
Make no mistake about it, though. They get to the Final Four or they're playing for a national championship because most of the country doesn't know about the turnover chain, yet the Canes haven't really played anyone. They only played 3 games. Make no mistake about it. Once they realize, there will be criticism. I promise you.
Does Tennessee have a trash can on the sidelines? Is Tennessee the team?
That's not nice to call Butch Jones that. Cross the line.
Give it to yourself, man. Give it to yourself.
He looks more like a fire hydrant than a trash can, but point taken. I just love the idea, though. Like, is there any better symbol for everything happening around Butch Jones than a trash can forever hovering behind him?
You want great symbolism? Because this story was just sent to me from someone up at ESPN. There was an actual dumpster fire outside the Browns Stadium on Tuesday.
Okay. An actual dumpster fire.
With pictures attached.
Took photos of Kenny Britt.
I was looking for the joke, too. I can't quite do it to Kaiser yet. It's too early to do it to Kaiser. I was looking for the joke, though.
Hi, everyone. Stugotz here. Support for the Dan Le Batard Show podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you are confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, and your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you the same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. Rocket Mortgage is simple, allowing you to fully understand all the details and be confident you are getting the right mortgage for you. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Stugotz. That's rocketmortgage.com/Stugotz, STUGOTZ. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states. NMLS consumeraccess.org number 3030.
You're listening to Love Advice with Leanne. Caller, you're on the air.
Hi, Leanne. Longtime listener, first-time caller. Why, in your professional opinion, do you never take my calls off the air?
Is this Carl?
Yep, it's Carl. I mean, we had a few dates. Everything was great. I thought,
Well, when you switch to Geico, you could save a lot of money on car insurance.
Okay, awesome.
You should call them.
I will.
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance